Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you America's top foundational health coach, Dr. Joe D.
Hey there, I'm Dr. Jody Bear, back with you with an amazing episode of Life's Milkshake Moment. As you know, life is like a milkshake. Choose your ingredients wisely, and when you do, life will be oh so sweet. A foundational health coach, knowing that for 42 years, I've been doing just that. 42 years in creating what I say is health, spiritually, physically, mentally, socially, and financially. Because as you know, this small town girl from Montana, ponytail, brown-haired, brown-eyed, still have brown hair if you go to the hairdresser. But my mother gave me hope. My mother gave me hope because she trained me, because my gift was music. My gift is becoming a classical musician, a classical singer. She gave me hope. With the money she poured into me with music lessons I could ill afford. But health became my passion when I found key components. When you hear from Dr. Michael Pierce, my hope started when my mother said to me, as she went from this life to the next and passed in to going and saying, Jody, give others hope the way you gave it to me. Give others hope. I was able to go in and actually give her almost 3 years length of life, well beyond her 6 weeks of diagnosis with pancreatic and liver cancer. But then I got hope from Dr. Hulda Clark for what you're going to hear about the human condition. One of the many books, one of the many periodicals that our guest here tonight on Life's Milkshake Moments has written, co-written, and published. He is a phenom unto himself. And I got that burning desire of creating hope in others when I met Dr. Hulda Clark, and she gave me hope and had this fire that I had inside of me that was really, I needed to be a health coach, but it turned into a burning inferno after I was around her, how I saw how a child's brain can be decoded, how it can be changed. And I can tell you, my life has never been the same. Talk about the mindset. And this is what Dr. Michael Pierce is going to be talking about. It's all really, it's much in the mind. You see, 1 million pounds of toxic fat lost, well over now, 1.1 million actually, over my 30,000 clients in 4 decades. However, in the COVID era, we have had 3,000 regain their life, because you can create something in the immune system to go ahead and bring the body back to reclaim, regain, and restart your life, because your health, it's a miracle-making machine, and the body can and will heal itself. So tonight, we're talking with the Brain Balance Doctor, because my esteemed guest tonight is truly an epic healer. When you hear his resume after a brief break from Confidence Tones, you're going to be amazed, because guess what? It sounds like he's 90 years old, but he's a young in his young 40s. This is what he has done, because the healers that we bring on this program, the healers that I have been just so happy to know, they really, really, really make a difference in their skill set, their mindset, and they are changing the trajectory of the world, just like our sponsor, Confidence Tones. This is Dr. Jody recommended. I was privileged to consult on this brain motors, and knowing it was a brain and balance doctor, I thought this was a perfect sponsor to bring up. But listen, take a listen to Confidence Tones and what it can do for you, your mind, your psyche, and your health. Take a watch, take a look, take a listen. Dr. Jody recommended. Check out Confidence Tones. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Confidence Tones, where we use a proprietary audio development formula called audio immersion to provide an experience that's designed to help quickly and effortlessly generate positive change in the subconscious mind when used correctly. This experience is achieved using 4 primary building blocks: brainwave modulation, invocation of positive emotions, immersive imagination stimuli, and developmental suggestion. We know of no other source in the world that provides the synergistic combination. With a good pair of headphones, you'll be able to immerse yourself into audio that's designed specifically to help you feel better, do better, and live better.
Do better, live better, feel better. This is exactly what Dr. Michael Pierce does for his client-patient base. Check this out. Doctor of Chiropractic, but he has more initials after his name than are in the alphabet. DACNB, neurobalancing doctor, I'm sure. Functional acuity neurosurgeon. I mean, seriously, natural medicine, chiropractic with an evolution of an independent, resourceful American philosophy of natural order and understanding the laws of physiology. Like I said, you would see this CV and resume. It looks like he's 90, but he's not. Okay. He went and graduated from the University of Wisconsin, Stevens Point, know it well. And chemistry, music, we like that. He knows about the brainwave with that modulation and philosophy, but he was steered to personal chiropractic, graduated from Palmer College, know it well, and had a grueling education. I believe it because you get DC, DAC, NB, FAC, FN after your name if you have done a grueling GRUELING education. All right, functional neurology with Dr. Frederick, Dr. Robert Carrick, the pioneer in the field. And so he studied for years and is committed to the human expression, as we're going to hear about his podcast called The Human Condition. I mean, he absolutely knows the brain. He knows how to monitor certain things. I know he's going to tell us a couple of stories about even very, very critically ill in the ICU patients that just came around with his balance. Okay. So he's the director of a large destination spa, okay, and a free public clinic. He hails from Parker, Colorado, and is an instructor, the University of Arkansas midwife. So he does that part of the brain to push those babies out. He has presented cases to the American Dental Society, the Holistic Dental Association, and the annual convention at the Minnesota Dental Board and for the Minnesota legislature. Minnesotans are kind of ahead of the time with this. All right. And he's assistant professor at the Carrick Institute of Clinical Neuroscience. We're going to hear about that he is at the apex of energetic since 2009. Like I said, we will hear about his immune response, about what he does with immune physiology, about immune cycles and stress cycles, and also about circadian rhythms. Boy, those are my wheelhouses. And I'm so grateful to have one of our Dr. Talk, our wonderful Dr. Talk doctors back here with us. Thank you for coming. Dr. Michael, what a delight you all are always, because your professionalism, what you bring to the table is amazing. Welcome to Milkshake Moments.
Jody, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here for you.
Yes, and you always are excited. That's just you. And I'm saying that for you to come here, to take your time, I'm very, very grateful. And know that I decided to put a little bit of the American flag back here. We're looking at 4th of July. Let's have a little patriotic background here. So let's start with your background with, the Dr. Michael that we know. Anything that I may have left out of your resume that you think is pertinent, just give us your best, because it will be something. Thank you, Dr.
Well, when you were talking in the intro about your background, it's funny. We do this thing where we're on the show all the time together, and we always learn about each other. And I just today realized that you had this big musical background with vocal and instrumental music. And I was a music major in college before I switched over to health and healing. So that's yet another thing we have in common.
Who knew? Who knew that there's something about musicians going into health because we're disciplined and we know how to get it done. What did you major in? I'm just curious.
Trombone and vocal performance originally.
And you have that musical voice, second tenor, I'm guessing.
Actually, baritone, but thank you.
Yes, you were barely a tone. That's what we always call those the high end, the high end. So how did you switch from music, philosophy, and find Palmer?
Well, gosh, it's a funny story. I had hurt my shoulder in some sports episodes and was told that I would need surgery and all kinds of things. And as a young college student, I thought, gosh, this is terrible. So, of course, I went to my family chiropractor and they referred me to other chiropractors, and a team of them put me back together. And so I realized that, wow, I really should look into this. And they explained to me that there was a whole long history of chiropractic that I didn't really know about, although I had been going to chiropractors since I was a teenager. So I was well versed in it as far as getting adjusted, but I didn't really know the history of the legal battles that they went through and all the political upheaval. And so they explained all this stuff, and I said, wow, these are really an interesting profession. So I immediately enrolled in different places. I was accepted to engineering school, I was accepted to medical school, and I was accepted to chiropractic school, and went right off to Palmer immediately. There was no question.
Well, and actually, I love the story and the history of Palmer and how chiropractic was a part of Mayo Clinic. That was their big deal. They had you right there, and they knew it. But life had a different turn for chiropractic, but it's come way far, and I applaud you for what you've done with this and what you've done in the world. So you found chiropractic, you had that shoulder injury. Did you say that you were a wrestler?
Well, I was in judo and I was in other martial arts and I was in other sports. I was just an all around sporty kind of kid, and I was always getting hurt, but this time I really did a bad one, and I thought I'd need surgery, and so did the surgeons.
And nothing like a little manipulation to bring the blood flow back. So your healing, then you were hooked. One treatment, you were hooked. My mother worked. She was a chiropractic assistant. I had my first adjustment when I was 3.
3.
Yes. So and he was an old Palmer grad for sure. But your background in functional healing, so you get this DC from Palmer, and then you found functional healing. I know there's a story behind that.
Well, actually, it's even more interesting. I actually got into functional healing as a kid. And I was 7 years old and I was having terrible problems. My family ate kind of what everybody else ate back then. If you remember back in the early 70s, it was Tang, and it was Twinkies, and everybody was into processed food, and everybody was into clean packaged food and plastic. And everybody wanted to have high tech stuff like the astronauts. And we wanted to eat that food in a packet that was floating around when the astronauts were on TV. And so I was one of those kids too. And my family, we didn't really know the difference until I turned 7. And at some point, I was just so sick that my parents took me to the doctors over and over again, and nothing worked. And finally, they talked to my grandfather and said, what should we do? And he looked at me and he said, well, we should give him some natural food. We should get him off of all these chemicals, and we should give him an elimination diet. So they gave me the books by Robert Rodale, who back then was a huge publisher of natural books. He published the Prevention magazine, which used to be a very, very holistic and forward-looking magazine. And he had all kinds of books and publications. And we started an elimination diet, and I was cured. And then I rediscovered natural medicine later as in chiropractic when I was in college. So I really actually got hit by it twice. I got hit by it when I was 7, and I got hit by it again when I was in college.
Well, and I'm just going to give you real prompts about what you have shared on our Doctor Talk episode. And yes, Dr. Michael Pierce is on our symposium panel. And what you put in that Doctor Talk Come Play in Our Sandbox about food and diet. And you've heard this before, but I thought this was very appropriate to bring up the standard American diet. It is sad, isn't it?
Oh, sad. Standard American diet.
So it went from finding clean, whole foods eating to this brain balance piece. Tell us about just how you found that human condition. Please share that story about the young girl who was in the hospital.
Oh, gosh. I have so many stories I'm trying to remember. Are you talking about coma story, or are you talking
Yes,
about?
yes, the coma
Oh,
story.
okay. Okay, there's a couple of coma stories, but to answer your first question, how I got into that, the brain balance was actually from the brain balance centers, which were a brainchild of actually the very famous Robert Melillo, who studied with me under Dr. Carrick, and we're part of that small group of chiropractic neurologists. You may have heard of Joe Dispenza; he's one of those as
Mhm.
well. He's one of us, and so that's a discipline of studying neurology without drugs and surgery. And so we use the same methods to diagnose people, but we also go a little further and try to look at subtle changes and differences in the brain. And that led to the world of coma research, which Dr. Carrick did, and the rest of us kind of followed and studied. And so I followed along and watched the work. And one day, one of my friends was in a coma. And I said, holy cow, I don't know anything about this. I'm a doctor and I'm in a hospital and I'm standing looking at my friend, and I don't know anything about how to get him out of this coma or what to do for him or even what's safe. And I
Wow.
knew a lot of the stuff that was being done wasn't safe. So I looked at that and I decided to go get the postdoctoral discipline of neurology from watching him. And then fast forward years later, I can tell stories all day. Fast forward years later to the lady that you were talking about. I was in a hospital. I was in a not in a hospital. I was in a program at the university where I was teaching neurology students and candidates. And a family had gone to Dr. Carrick and said, "We'd like to have you work with this family member in a coma for 6 years." And then he said, "Well, I've got a waiting list of 6 years." So it'll be another 6 years for you. So go see Mike. And I then took her on. And so that began the story of how that story unfolded.
Well, and so you took her on, and when her body healed herself through your training, I guess you moved up the
Well, now
pecking order.
this one did not heal, but this one led to a formation of a team. Not everybody makes it, and that's the hard part about coma and difficulties. And I owe everything that I learned to these mentors of mine. But we taught a bunch of students and we made a lot of progress, but we did not ultimately wake her up or save that one. But we did wake up others. And so that was the first case of mine, and it was a real learning experience for a lot of us to understand, what's going on and how do we get people better, and what can we do, and what is hope, and what kind of changes can be made in a person. So I am convinced that she was suffering less by the time we were finished, but we did not wake her up, but we woke
Oh,
up others.
but I mean, just to think of doing this modality, how did you attract Dr. Carrick and Dr. Frederick? How did you attract them into your life?
Well, Frederick Robert Carrick is the
Oh,
kind of the leader
oh, gotcha. I
of the
thought,
work. Yep, yeah, he was the leader of the work and made many major discoveries. And there's been, of course, Robert Millow since then, and Jerry Leisman, who I authored a chapter in a book that you mentioned earlier, the textbook. And so basically, I didn't really. I was just one of many students, and I still am really just one of many students. My job is to learn, and we get humbled every single day. Every time we see a patient in front of us, we start from zero, and we don't succeed every day, but every time with every patient, but we do largely, and we have very good results. But because there isn't the budget to study these things like drugs, we don't have this long line that we can point back to and say there's proof that this method will fix, say, MS
yes.
or coma or whatever problem a person may have, like concussion. Concussion's a really big thing that our discipline works on quite successfully, along with autoimmune, as you talked about, autoimmune conditions like MS and other conditions where the immune system attacks the brain.
Well, and that's going into my next. And I think Dr. Carrick, he needs three names. Frederick Robert Carrick. That fits. That fits with a lot of syllables. So the immune system is so big. Now we talk about it. So you hear. I mean, think about it, Dr. Michael. We didn't hear anything about the immune system before COVID. Nobody even knew what it was. They thought it was some made up name. And here we are now with the immune system. You've done so much work as a functional neurologist with the immune system. So just share with us a couple of stories and the responses you've gotten in your modality here. I would love to know.
This is a kind of a weird story, which was kind of strange. One of the earliest cases that I ever treated that was a neuroautoimmune case was a person with Crohn's disease. And Crohn's disease is a problem with the large intestine where you have irritations of the nerves and you have neuroautoimmunity and you have the immune system attacking your colon and you bleed from the rectum and you have problems with blood and stool. And it's very painful and very difficult for people. And a particular gentleman came to me, a young man, and we were looking at his case and we were trying to examine what was going on. And one of the many differentials that came up in our mind as we figure out what's going on and we triage somebody was the fact that he was eating lectins. And lectins are these plant defense molecules in food and plants that are there to keep animals away a little bit, but not kill them. So they'll go on and they'll eat another plant if they eat too much. And so these lectins can be a real problem. So the short version of the story is we took him off of potato lectin because there was a famous guy who studied potato lectin named Arpad Pustai. And Arpad is now no longer with us, but he was one of the world's most famous researchers in potato lectin. And he studied GMO and GMO potatoes, and he studied rats, and he studied all kinds of stuff. So he told the world, look out for GMO and potato lectin. And so we took this guy off potato lectin, and it cured him. He was fine. He stopped bleeding, and he was fine. Now, that doesn't happen for most people, and I'm not saying that lectins or even potato lectins are the cause of all Crohn's disease. I'm only saying that guy's biochemical individuality was such that that was what fixed him. And so we don't want to be so blind as to say that one thing always fixes everything in natural medicine. You know that better than I do.
Yeah, but still the idea is that one thing, because what I love when I think about functional and why I say it's foundational health, it gets down into the foundation, because when you that's when you pull the dandelion up by the root. I also say I'm not half-listic, I'm holistic. There's a big difference of that. That's what you haven't heard me say that before, Michael?
I love it. Oh my God.
But that's what I'm going to, and we're going to be talking about Healthopedia here in just a minute, but that's what I'm going to name. This is a holistic book. This is holistic what we do, and it's so holistic what you do with circadian rhythms. The book that I just recently debuted and launched with the 21 Days to Your Best You, that is built on circadian rhythms. So tell us about circadian rhythms and healing.
Well, gosh, the big circadian rhythms I think that people are coming to be aware of are the rhythms that are in the night, the day to night rhythms. It's a 24-hour rhythm, and that's the cortisol rhythm, or the rhythm of your adrenal glands behind your kidneys back here. So up behind your kidneys, up in your upper low back, is the adrenal glands, and they are part of a rhythm from your brain that wakes you up and puts you to sleep. And so the cortisol is supposed to have a nice spike at about 7 or 8 a.m. You make a lot of it, and that helps you wake up. That helps you have good blood sugar after you've been asleep and not eating for 12 hours or more. And then it goes back down, and it should stay down the rest of the day and the night. But sometimes it doesn't. And so we can measure that circadian or daily rhythm, and we can see if there's reasons that it's wrong and ways to fix it. And it can help with a lot of problems. In fact, with women, it's really important because it works together with thyroid and female sex hormones and adrenal. That triumvirate there, those three things are so important for every woman to know about.
Yes. Oh, I mean, for real. And it's something for you to know about that. Dr. Michael, as you may be hearing, this on a replay, as it is during that summertime and everything else, that this is his website coming soon, is thehumanconditionlab.com. Keep a lookout for that. I mean, for real. And you can always find him at chiropierce@gmail.com. And before we go to our commercial break, I want to say, I want to thank the patrons. I want to thank the Summers family. I want to thank the Jacobs family and also the Smith family. 3 new patrons for our show this week. Just like PBS, just like any other thing, it takes money to bring on these fine people like Dr. Pierce, these summits that we're going to be doing, like the one in September with our launch of Healthopedia. So thank you for believing in what we're doing. Thank you for believing in the Healthopedia channel. So what we're going to do now, we're going to take a listen, and I'm going to keep you up here, Dr. Michael. These products are Dr. Jody approved, Vibra 360. That's the wrong one. Let's do it again. Even 360, how to detox your liver, how to go ahead and know that it can be tasted like raspberries, moving this through because it'll make your liver quiver. Libra 360, get it now. We're talking fixed mushroom blend, not only black, coffee can taste and be healthy for you. And in latte, it is absolutely vegan formula, coconut cream. It is truly Dr. Jody approved, and I'll put up the website. You can go to drjody.com and just absolutely enjoy this. Of course, there are 2 supplements, one of which students are taking for you with none other than Alice. 6 mushroom blend will totally make a difference. Body alkaline, you keep your body alkaline. And of course, talks about immune system. This is super immune complex, healthy, your body strong. That's what we do at Libra 360. Enjoy the products. You can go on my website, Dr. Jody /Vibra 360. So I had to put in something with your immune system there for sure. And I want to put in something right now that you talked about in our last broadcast. See, I always have a thing, Dr. Michael. I said, I know when to coach and when to be coachable. Guess what came in the mail today?
Wonderful.
With Bob and I being this age, we had a wonderful episode. If you didn't catch it, on longevity, and Dr. Michael, you talked about silica in the water, and you give just natural things with diet and all of that as well. It's just amazing what you come up. Dr. Bill, who introduced me to you. Thanks, Dr. Bill. For bringing me in contact with Dr. Michael. My goodness gracious, he said, I always am around Dr. Michael because he makes me smarter. So make us smarter about silica and longevity, and what you talked about this in our last broadcast, please.
Well, I'm just the bringer of the word. I did not create this, but there's a wonderful couple of doctors that, again, you get me telling stories, and you got to stop me once you wind me up. There's a very famous doctor, Christopher Exley in Great Britain, who is the world master of aluminum. He is the expert on aluminum, and he is the expert. There's not just one, but he is kind of the most famous for proving that aluminum accumulates in the brains of people and animals, and that there's ways to get rid of it. And one of the ways to get rid of it is silica-based water, silicic acid water specifically. Now, this is not salicylic acid. That's aspirin. That's white willow bark. We're talking about something different, which is the silica-based water made from essentially silicon dioxide, but it's not silicon dioxide. It's called silicic acid, and it's in lots and lots of waters around the world. It's part of those longevity zones where people live to be over 100 years old, and it binds to aluminum and it pulls it out of your brain. And so it's a very useful thing and very inexpensive. It's in lots of waters. Several mainstream waters have it, and they usually write it on the back label, and they tell you how much silicic acid or how much silicon is in the waters. It's very useful in this age today where we have these adjuvants that are in the jabs that are made of aluminum. We have aluminum in pots and pans. We have aluminum in the boilers of our hot water kettle. If you turn on the kettle, as they say in Britain, if you flip the kettle, it's aluminum often. That heating element is aluminum. We have aluminum in our antacids. A lot of people take antacids, and that's the major source of aluminum for humans is antacids, aluminum containing antacids, which is usually from dietary imbalance anyway and can be fixed without aluminum antacids. But the aluminum is around us. It's in chemtrails. It's in some pesticides. It's in some herbicides, and so we've got it everywhere. We live in the aluminum age. So Exley taught Dennis Krause, whose book you were holding up there, and Dennis gives a recipe on how to make it yourself at home. So you can make your own silicic acid water at home. You don't have to buy it, although you can buy it. And he says that you've got to have a little more than a liter a day of this 30 parts per million of silicated water. And if you do that, you can you can reverse some disease. In fact, he reversed his mother's Alzheimer's in about 3 months using about a liter a day, liter and a half a day of this water. So it's not the only water you drink, but it's certainly part of a good day's water. And I'm not a fan of fluoride. I'm not a fan of having fluoride in water. And so I think that should be out of the water too. I think that it's very important that you not be drinking that stuff in most cases. Now you can talk to your doctor about that, but I don't love it. So I think this is a great way to help us, and it helps with short-term memory. And here's one thing I'll end on with that piece is believe it or not, getting rid of aluminum doesn't only help your brain with memory, but it helps you with wrinkly skin. It helps you with cellulite. It helps you with elastic skin, and it helps you with skin that recoils and rebounds nicely like it used to, because aluminum messes that up.
It messes everything up except the chemistry deal with in the balance with that. So sorry, we got a little bit of a delay here, but you're not delayed. Let me ask you this. Give us, before we go on to the next topic, which is your book that you wrote in Child Decoded. What is, can you give us 3 examples of mainstream waters that have it in there already?
Well, I know that Fiji does, and I know that Gerolsteiner does, and there's several others whose names I'm not sure I can pronounce. They're Eastern European or Polish or Russian or other types of countries whose I don't even pronounce them. But I do know Gerolsteiner and Fiji have it, and there are several others. But you just look at the back label, try to look at the back label and try to figure out if you can see it on the back label, and it'll tell you. If it doesn't have it written on the label, you're not going to be able to tell.
No, and here we go. Child Decoded. When I was talking about brain, ADHD, what happened with me when I met Dr. Hulda Clark, make sure that you write down, coming soon, probably in August, Dr. Michael's new website, the Human Condition Lab. So just talk to me about Child Decoded, would you?
Well, Child Decoded was a group of women that got together and assembled some amazing authors, just dozens of us. And so we all got together and we wrote chapters and parts of chapters. And I wrote all the blocks in that book, the text blocks that talk about neurology. So I also wrote chapter 17 on functional neurology. But we all got together and we decided to try to write the best single book that would encapsulate everything that a parent would need for a challenged child in the learning environment. And so this book goes through just every possible thing that you can think of, from diets to lab testing to various types of rehab and therapies and diets that they could eat and brain exercises they could do, and the brain balance centers from Dr. Melillo, and just all the stuff out there. So it tried to review everything. It's quite thick. You can't tell from the front cover, but it's quite a thick book. And it was a top seller on Amazon for this category of nonfiction advice for parents.
Beautiful, beautiful. And boy, we need to decode those children more than any time. So get it, go to Amazon. It is still in the top 50. I checked it out. I don't know when it can top 50 in a couple of categories, which is something. You can get to be number 1 when you stay there. You have staying power because people are finding it. So I want to go into you, Dr. Michael. You've had this brick and mortar, like I did up until COVID started, and you've transitioned now into train the trainer and to coaching. How did that just evolve for you?
Well, gosh, COVID and the whole experience of lockdown really led me to discover people like you. And so really your story, you're ahead of me. I've only been in practice 30 years. And so when I look at your career and I see that and I watch all the things you're doing, you're ahead of me. And so you're kind of showing me how to do this stuff and how to do these online shows and how to do these online consulting things. And so I'm following a number of great people that emerged, and a handful of them are like you. And I've just followed and copied, and I'm so happy. And I've been able to help more people. Our channel on YouTube has reached 500,000 views and 10,000 subscribers as of now. And so that's more than I could have ever reached before. And so It's just inspiration from watching just great healers.
Well, and you are the epitome of what Les Brown's here. We come together as a collaborative, heart-centered, just real servant leaders And that's what we come together. And you have done that. You've done that. I'm going to put your podcast up there so they can, I don't want to put the real long thing. If you just look under Dr. Michael Pierce, you will see him. I mean, 500,000 views, and I can learn a thing or two with this. I've been doing 280 shows. I thought this was just going into YouTube from Traverse. It was going into a black hole. So I'm doing a remodel. We'll be talking about that later on. You and I, we're going to have some collaboration about that, but it's called the Human Condition Podcast. And I'll tell you something. I was thinking when, I remember I was coming up the turnpike, and when we had this talk about Healthopedia, I am so honored that you said yes to being a part of this book with Dr. Bernie Siegel and helping us get this out. Why did you say yes? I mean, you got a thing or two going on. Why did you say yes to this?
Well, you had me at Joe D, but then when you brought in Bernie Siegel, that was, I mean, who could not? You know, I admired Bernie. Bernie may have been part of the reason that I became a doctor. So, I mean, with that combination, how could you say no? I mean, who would say no in our profession? Who would say no to that?
I am going to use that. You had me at Joe D. That's a, you know, I'll put my husband Bob on notice on that too. So let's come back after this next commercial break and go into the Healthopedia book, and then what we're going to be doing in that a little bit, and then find out a little bit more about everything Dr. Michael. So let's look. We now have our 42 authors. We're ready to rock and roll. We're in editing, but let's go ahead, take a look on what we're doing with Healthopedia. And we'll have a chance to join the Healthopedia movement. Not only will we be having a virtual summit, it'll be 3 days, the middle of September, third week in September. Dr. Michael will be giving his 15 minutes of knowledge and pizzazz for sure on Traverse TV. So it's going to be a broadcast, simulcast, 6 hours a day for 3 days. And also then we'll be kicking off our virtual and live summits, and then a master's mastermind. So ladies and gentlemen, there's going to be plenty of opportunities to just be involved in the brilliance of people like Dr. Michael Pierce. So my goodness, what do you see on this collective that we're doing this, why it's going to make a difference, Dr. Michael?
Well, I think getting people to ask the questions and getting them to challenge their doctors, getting them to challenge their assumptions that they learned in, maybe high school health class. We have the lowest rates of health success in the United States with regard to chronic disease. We're great for acute. If you get hit in a car accident or you fall off a building, that's a fantastic place to be, the United States. But if you've got nearly anything else, you're going to spend way more money than any other country, and you're going to get way worse results if you're not in that narrow band of success that we occupy. So I think this will give us a chance to really showcase all the doctors and all the individuals and all the ways of thinking and all the resources where you can go. You can go to books, you can go to websites, you can go to YouTube now. It wasn't like that when I was a kid. You had to scratch and claw to get information when I was a kid.
I mean, I remember what I had to do to find where Dr. Hulda Clark was living, and there was no internet, whatever. I just had to drive up to Alpharetta and just ask people, do you know where Dr. Hulda Clark lives? It was old school, and now we're in new school. And let's talk about what's new with the Human Condition podcast. You just breezed over that. We've had over 1 million views and 50,000 followers or whatever. Excuse me. I'm raising my hand. I want to be a guest. Okay. So I'm going to put you on full screen. I just realized, we love this thing called technology. I just realized that I don't have I think I can make it. I don't have my computer plugged in, but I'm going to put you on full screen. So I'll be back in a minute. Talk about the human condition, would you?
Sure. Well, the human condition was born from the idea that we have to educate, we have to teach, we have to explain. And so there needed to be a place where people could go for the basics. And the basics are just, where do you begin? How do you start thinking about natural health? How do you start thinking about independence and health sovereignty, and even more than health freedom, health liberty? The idea that you could have your own money and you could have your own health and you could have your own sovereignty is something that's pretty new to people. And I think we let it erode away. And we learned with the lockdowns that we were losing our freedoms, we were losing our liberties, and we needed to get back in touch with each other. You know, when I was a kid, my parents took me to food co-ops. And today a food co-op is a Whole Foods or a Sprouts or something. But back then, you know what a food co-op was? It was somebody's basement. And a truck would come once a week and it would drop off pallets of stuff. And moms and dads would go over there and take a pallet off the truck and take the plastic down and sort it out and inventory it. And the kids would go in the basement and kill each other. And we would then go home with a car full of meat and products and natural stuff. And we did that all the time. That was our hippie lifestyle of trying to be healthy back then, because there were no health food stores to speak of, really. I mean, truly.
No. When you're talking about this, when I was, the story of me being at La Leche League and found out that that I could indeed put my knowledge where my mouth was. And when I said, what's this, additives and preservatives? I got challenged, got my first health coaching career. That group ended up, we 24 mothers did a food co-op for the next 10 years, all the way down to the Forest Park Farmers Market. We went through some lengths, didn't we, to get natural foods back then?
Yeah. And Jody, my mom was also a La Leche League leader. So I grew up watching that process. I grew up watching her teach women how to breastfeed and watching them learn how to be independent and overcome problems instead of just roll over and take formula.
Boy, you were just destined to be this natural healer. So I know people are going to want to keep in contact with you. I know that you have something that you'd like to offer. If you do, please share that in our last few minutes together. This was just, I knew this was going to be a gooey Life's Milkshake moment, because you had many Life's Milkshake moment with Dr. Carrick, with your shoulder finding Palmer and everything else. And you were just your own Life's Milkshake moment for sure. But do you have something that's coming up, or where can they find you the next time that you're going to be doing an event?
Oh gosh, well, I'm lecturing all over the world in different places in Europe and Mexico and the United States. I will have a website up next month, and that'll be the best place to track me. It's not up quite yet, but it will be. And of course, watch the YouTube channel. You'll see lots of live events and lots of interviews and lots of presentations, product reviews. But you can really change the world. You can make a big difference. When I was down in Arkansas working for the midwifery college, I was teaching nutrition.
Right.
We changed the whole rates of cesarean section in Arkansas back then. Just a handful of us at a midwifery college. We changed the whole state's rates of intervention, and it was actually bad intervention. It was over application of medicine that shouldn't have been applied. It was unnecessary. And so we reduced that together by teaching. And so you can do it just by talking to people, by meeting in somebody's living room or somebody's basement. Just get together and talk.
Well, I think there was a guy that chose 12 men and changed the world. So there you go. True?
Absolutely. Oh, my God.
Yes. So share with us the last bit of wisdom from Dr. Michael. I know you've got one other tidbit in there, please.
Boy, I think Bernie Siegel was really the master. Bernie told us a bunch of stuff, and Bernie's message led to, I think, probably the best message I ever heard was Patrick Quillen. And Patrick Quillen is in that tradition of using wellness and being aware of yourself. And he always said, and it's not my quote, this is his. He always said, "It's not so much what you're eating as what's eating you."
Isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth? And I mean, Dr. Michael, you've given us so much food for thought, no pun intended, taking out the potatoes to remove the lectins or whatever. But I love working with you. This is going to be so much fun being on tour with our Healthopedia book. It's going to be so amazing just to be together, watch this unfold, and let's change the world. Just like with our last sponsor here tonight, it says ignite humanity. That's what you've done with your medical, your healing. I'm going to call it your healing ways and your serving ways. And make sure you check out Dr. Michael's podcast coming soon, The Human Condition Lab. Just check out his podcast. If he's got 1 million people that have checked him out, you should too. Thank you, Dr. Michael, for being our guest. You just were your own life's milkshake moment because you have chosen your ingredients wisely. Thank you.
Now, more than ever, we need to come together to connect with one another. We need to feel the truth in who we are and let go of everything that's happened in the past. We need to empower every person on the planet and awaken hearts, enliven souls, come together, laugh, play, rejoice, connect, create, and love. It's time to ignite humanity. We want you to be a part of something that will impact the future for everyone. We want you to tell your story, share your ignite moment, show people who you truly are. Be a part of igniting humanity and making a difference in the world and all of our futures.
Boy, Dr. Michael has done that. He changed the human condition. You think about just blasé, oh, well, we had people in comas and we figured it out. That's really igniting humanity. And I know that you're going to be tuning into him, seeing what's up, what's new. He just has that kind of a focus and that kind of a servant heart leader. I thank you, Dr. Michael, for being the epic man that you are. And I wanted to let you know that we've got something pretty epic coming up this next month. As you know, 5 countries, the 21 days to your best you, but we are going to be a part and want you to be a part of the next collective. It is our next step, the 21 days collective. We are going to do a Life of Excellence Mastermind, 21 days straight through. All you have to do is go to my website, buy the book, grab yourself a copy, send me a receipt, and the $9.97 valued mastermind will be yours for $97. Say, send me an email. Dr. Jody, I want to be part of this collective. It's real easy. It just go ahead and put in Jody Health Coach at Gmail. You can put it through my website and you can just hook us up, and then you can be a part. As we said, what if you knew 21 days? That's the circadian rhythm that Michael was talking about. Dr. Michael was talking about, that you can go ahead and have that be a part of such an amazing thing that you can learn, be, and grow with us. It's Jody Health Coach at gmail.com. So let me tell you that you can make a difference. As Dr. Michael alluded to, Dr. Bernie Siegel, what he said about the 21 days to your best you is the Amazon review. He said, joggers, vegetarians, and meditators all die, but it's how you live that counts. Dr. Jody Bear gives you a simple and attainable roadmap in the life for your life in the 21 days to your best you keys to a life of excellence. She not only asks the questions, but gives you the answers. Reading your book is like training for a marathon we call life. He knows that at being 90 years old, doesn't he? You have to be willing to show up for practice too. So read Health Coach Dr. Jody's book and find your way to the winner's circle of life. I'm looking forward to you coming on our winner's circle of life starting on the 28th of July on our mastermind. Now we're taking the month of July off. Why? Because I want to rebroadcast some of our finest things of this last year. And I'm focusing on the editing portion of Healthopedia. It's important for me to focus there. So we're going to be having a rebroadcast of Mindset Mondays, also of Life's Milkshake Moments, and then Doctor Talk. You can always find me at healthcoachjodee.com, Dr. Jodee, DOJEODEE.com, at Health Coach Jody on all social media handles. And then also old school, 1-800-820-0584. That's 1-800-820-0584. And remember, health isn't something you do. It's what you become along life's journey. Look what Dr. Michael became. Look what he became because his mother had a part of that, being a La Leche League leader, being in that co-op, doing this that he learned from design. And then the apple didn't fall far from the tree. So I'm going to say it one more time. It's going to have to last you a month. Health is not something you do, but it's what you become along life's journey. Let's become health. Let's become that life of excellence. And you can become it hanging around us with healthopedian people, professionals like Dr. Michael Pierce. And this is Jody Bear signing off. Health Coach Jody saying, make sure the month of July and every day you have health the Dr. J way. Ciao for now.